All right, excited to be back for another edition of Tech Stack Chats. I'm Eric Abel from the AirStack team at Lenovo, and I'm excited to welcome Francis Pedraza from Invisible Technologies. Francis,
Thanks.
thank you for joining. Take it away.
Grateful to be here. Yeah, so I met Eric when I was a student in college. Actually, I was at Cornell University. I came down to New York City for a conference, and he was already, this accomplished guy in tech. And we stayed in touch over the years, and I found out about what he was doing around chronicling everything about the modern tech stack and providing software with AirStack. And I thought it was fascinating because it relates to our business, and a lot of the thinking that went into starting Invisible has to do with the economic theory behind the problems that get created when there's an app for everything. So I thought we would talk about that.
Yeah, so set the stage a little bit about Invisible.
Sure. So after my first startup failed, I took some time off to travel, and then I spent a year doing an experiment called Cheeky, where I asked all my startup friends to share startup ideas they didn't have time to start. And I would publish an idea a day. And so over the course of a year, we had hundreds and hundreds of ideas across different technology categories and different industries. And these patterns emerged from those ideas. And so I wrote theses to describe the patterns I was seeing. And one of the things that stood out to me when I took this very zoomed out approach was that the biggest problem in the world is, ironically, solutions. There's an app for everything. So why isn't everything perfect yet? And that's a mystery. And I found the answer to the question, the riddle, in this dead economist named Ronald Coase. And I think Coase is the most overlooked economist of the 20th century. He was one of the sort of founding fathers of the University of Chicago's economics department. And his insight is that it's not about supply and demand, it's about the frictions between the two. So he focused on friction. Friction was his big concept. So there are things like, even though there's an app for everything, and every year technology gets more and more powerful, why do we feel like we're the slaves of technology instead of the masters? Why do we feel like we're always running around? And the answer is that solutions have costs, like usage costs. There's only 24 hours in a day to use technology. Integration costs. Once you have 5 apps going, you have to get all the data to talk to each other, and that's really hard. Discovery costs. There might be some app that you don't know exists that would help you massively, but you need to go out and research it and find it. There's switching costs. Like you're using this app, and then you realize this app's better, but you have to move all the stuff over. So there's like 12 different frictional costs. And I think usage costs are the major one, but there are all these others. And it sort of answers the mystery of like why everything's not perfect yet. So I thought, okay, if the biggest problem in the world is solutions, what's the solution for that? and so I started Invisible to answer that question. And what Invisible is you can delegate any repetitive digital work that you hate doing to a bot, and you can name your bot whatever you want. And then behind the scenes, we have humans logging into your accounts, following step-by-step instructions and doing the work. And then we do process automation to automate those processes to drive down the cost even further. But we start by billing out their time at $15 an hour. If you spend a lot with us, the price goes down to 10. So why is that a significant solution? And the reason why it's a significant solution is, you can almost think of it like a layer, right? The average knowledge worker spends about 41% of their time doing work that could be done for them, according to a Harvard Business Review article. And so if we could basically be the usage layer and log into your accounts for you and do any instruction-based work, you would move your focus from organizational and administrative stuff that's dragging you down to being more purely creative and strategic. And basically, we would abstract you into the higher functions of intelligence. And so that's really, really exciting to me, because like using technology to enable human potential is like the primary driving force in my career. And the irony is sort of Rousseau wrote, if man is born free, but everywhere he's in chains, is like the perfect description of technology. Like, we created all this technology to make us powerful, but somehow we're like the slaves to it. And so the idea that like solving the usage cost problem would be like the magic ticket was the big insight. Obviously, everyone is familiar with the concept of AI now. Like, AI has been hyped to an extreme limit. And I think what most people don't realize is that general artificial intelligence is probably a century away. It's a pie in the sky research project. And if you focus on general AI as the answer to the usage cost problem, you're probably not going to see any results in the short term. And if you build, like, make a bot that has great natural language processing, and you type to it and it can type an intelligent response back, even though Siri and Alexa and these things are sort of cool toys, they don't actually do any work for you. And so that's like approach number one to solving the problem. Approach number two to solving the problem is robotic process automation. And I don't know if you're familiar with any of the big RPA companies, but there are several large ones now: WorkFusion, UiPath. These are now unicorns. But they target like big banks, like Citibank, and they'll go to some back office process where they've got like 100 people sitting in an office doing the same thing over and over again, and they will send like expensive consultants to map those processes, and then they'll automate like 20% of the job, and so they'll be able to take those 100 people and now let go 20, and they'll have 8 and become more efficient. But that doesn't work for you and me, sort of for the masses. And so robotic process automation is approach number two. The third approach is tech-enabled services. So there are companies like Upwork. So Upwork is basically like the biggest labor marketplace in the world. And I don't know if you know this, but it blew my mind. 70% of the world makes less than $10 a day. So labor has never been this cheap. Labor has never been this cheap in all of history, and it's all on the internet now, and it's like cheap, almost as cheap as processing power. But the problem is, because of cozy and friction, it doesn't actually make sense to use Upwork at scale. So you might post a job on Upwork, like, I really would love to hire someone, an online freelancer, like a virtual assistant, to go do this research for me, or to go generate sales leads for me. You'll post the job, and you'll get a ton of people to apply to do the job. You have to pick the one that you like the best. You have to interview them. You have to trust them. You have to hand over your password. You have to train them. You have to build a process to make sure that, say it's Joe in the Philippines. So you get Joe in the Philippines to the point where he's doing 40 hours of work for you a week. And then what do? You have to go do it again and hire another Joe in the Philippines. And pretty soon you've got like 10 Joes in the Philippines working for you. You have to coordinate them and manage them. It's a full-time job, and you're not saving any time. Even though in theory there's like enormous supply of labor and there's enormous demand for it, the cozy and frictions kill it. So there's in terms of the tech-enabled services, there hasn't been a major breakthrough. So what Invisible tries to do is blend these three approaches. We have the bot, and we have a digital assembly line to coordinate the labor. So it doesn't matter how many processes you have. Doesn't matter how custom they are, we'll design the processes, we'll build them, we've built hundreds of processes. We have the step-by-step instructions. We'll hire and train and coordinate the workforce with our technology. You just need to interact with the bot, and then we'll automate the processes over time to drive costs down, and that's like RPA for the masses. So if you are like in most companies, the only people who have executive assistants are like VP level and up, right? Because it just doesn't make sense in the expensive cities like San Francisco, LA, New York, London. Doesn't make sense to spend $60,000 to $250,000 for like a high-end chief of staff. Anywhere in that range is just very expensive. And even if you're VP level and up, but even if you had the best assistant in the world, sorry, you there? I had a call come in. I had to send it to voicemail. Am I gonna nod? Eric, you can still hear me, right?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. So even if you had the best assistant in the world, they you don't want to be the worst boss ever and give them like 120 hours a week of work. So you can only do 40 hours a week and they have to go on vacations and whatever. But at least you have some leverage so you can be effective. If you're director level and down, you have no delegation resource. The idea with Invisible is to give everyone in the company an infinite delegation resource. So even if you have an executive assistant, that person is like an Iron Man suit for you, and then Invisible is like an Iron Man suit for them. So that's the concept, but it all comes back to this idea of like cozy and frictions, and the biggest problem in the world being solutions. So when you look at your tech stack, the next time you map it all out using airstack.com, Eric's software that Lenovo built, you're gonna look at it all. And the interesting thing to think about is like how data moves from one thing to another, what workflows and processes connect all this stuff, and who's doing that work inside your company and how much their time costs. Because if 41% of their time is basically moving data along and running basic processes to keep the entire machine of your company going, and they're making their time's worth $100 an hour, you're wasting something like 16 hours a week of their time. That could be billed out at $10 an hour, and the cost to you on an annual basis is something like $50,000 to $75,000 per employee. Just mind blowing. But yeah, I'm gonna stop ranting. I can keep going, but I'll stop.
This is awesome stuff, Francis. I'm glad we're reconnecting. So I know that Invisible recently just got some funding. So let's talk about how you're using technology, or how you're thinking about technology to scale your own business.
Yeah, it's a great question. So obviously we use a lot of proprietary stuff. Our biggest team is our operations team. So we have 100 people around the world, about 25 partners, about 75 agents in 16 countries. And the digital assembly line, we used to build, software on top of other tools. Like we built version 1 of the digital assembly line on Slack. And we built a routing technology and time tracker, all these tools. But then we now have our own software, our own digital assembly line 2.0. And then we are launching next month our client web app. So clients are going to be able to log in and see all their stuff. But our initial interface was just emailing with the bot. So that's our operations team. Our growth team uses tools that are off the shelf, like HubSpot. HubSpot's our CRM. So every time a client signs up on the website, we get their credit card on Stripe. So Stripe is part of our finance stack, and a deal is created in HubSpot, and we instantly do an onboarding call. So there's automation there using Google Calendar, so that's like the major tool that the growth team uses. And then the finance team obviously uses Stripe and Xero. And we have the operations team has some time tracking tools that pipe in to that, so that we can do, if you're paying people in 16 countries around the world in different currencies every week, different amounts based on how much they work, there's a lot of automation between the finance team and the operations team. Let me think. The development team, we're about to sign a contract for a piece of training software that'll be relatively large, and I don't want to disclose who yet, but the HR team uses Breezy for our applicant tracking system, because we're hiring obviously all the time, all around the world, for a ton of different roles. And then for our training system, we're going to sign a contract. But those are the major tools that we use. And then Asana is what we use for sort of general productivity and project management internally for the core team. And we track everything in Asana. It's a beautiful tool, very powerful. And obviously, like G Suite is the other piece of the sort of productivity backbone. And where I put Invisible in terms of your technology stack, it's in that productivity suite, but it's like a layer on top of everything.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. So, one last question, and then I'll let you go. It's been so great to hear, the vision for the digital assembly line, and obviously this unlocking this 41%. could be a huge win for businesses. If I'm let's say I'm a 10-person, marketing team, highly technical, technology oriented, lots of trying to acquire customers and drive customer experiences. What is Invisible going to do for that marketing team? How would they apply that?
Love the question. So we have this weird thing in Invisible where Invisible uses Invisible, right? And so we use it for our own marketing. For example, we've built a lot of processes to do lead generation for our clients. So they use us very heavily for that, whether it's generating leads on LinkedIn, on AngelList, on any database on the internet, doing research, saying like, find me every single, let's say you're selling something to pet stores. Find me in Austin, Texas. Find me every pet store in Austin, Texas. We'll go do that for you. And we're more economical than almost any other solution for doing lead generation. So of course we use it for ourselves. And we'll take, say we've built, 12 processes for operations managers that we've seen operations managers use again and again. We'll take these 12 processes, they're on the website, so each one has a link, and then we will draft an email, and then we'll go get the emails of every operations manager we can find in a region, say in New York City or the greater New York area. And we'll send them an email saying, hey, we're reaching out because we tend to save the average operations manager about 10 hours a week doing these 12 processes, and it ends up costing X dollars. If you're interested, here's some service credit. We can sign you up immediately, and you'll have a free trial of 7 free hours, and we'll prove to you that we're good. And then some percentage of those people respond, and they're interested, and they sign up, and then we prove to them that we're good. We earn trust, and then they sign up for a subscription, and then they become clients. So if you're a marketer, whether depending on what your marketing channels are and who you're targeting, we can help you do lead generation. Lead generation's big. But then we can actually help all the way through that whole funnel. So a marketer might want to generate the leads and get the MQLs in the door, and need a tool to do that because they don't have infinite manual labor, and they don't want to spend high CPAs on Google and Facebook. So Invisible is like their way to get scalable, low cost, MQLs in the door, acquisitions in the door. But what about the salesperson? So, all these meetings come through, you need to schedule them. Once you schedule them, you need to add them to your CRM. Once you add them to your CRM, you need to go get some briefing documents on them. So you walk into that meeting prepared. You need to send every single one an email with some information to help them prepare them for the call. After the call, you need to add notes to your CRM and choose next steps. So there's this whole process, and a lot of salespeople feel like they spend half their time doing accounting and only half their time doing sales. So we can get rid of that accounting side, so you can spend most of your time being charismatic in meetings, persuading clients, and helping solve their problems. And then on and on and on. You just keep following the client, from the marketing team to the sales team to the operations team, and Invisible can help almost every team in the company. But your initial question was about the marketers, and I think that lead generation is the big thing we can help with.
Well, marketing and sales have a close relationship with a lot of dynamics. One of those being around the idea that salespeople don't actually like to follow processes or work with the technology that has been put in place. So the idea of letting a salesperson sell and then having a digital assembly line do all the lead management and all that stuff sounds really compelling. I'm definitely going to have to get back with you because I've got a whole lot of work on my plate that I could potentially process size and outsource. So
awesome.
We'll have an Invisible conversation.
I'd love to empower you.
So one more bonus secret question, Francis, that I asked at the end of all of these, which is give me 5 words that would personify or embody your tech stack.
You need to think about this for a second. Should I use positive words or negative words? I'm going to go with negative because that's where all the opportunity is.
All right, let's do it.
So suboptimal, first word I would use. disintegrated. It's not well integrated. Like we're always trying to optimize it. We're always trying to integrate it better. I don't know. Can I use hyphenated words? I can create words.
Whatever comes to mind for you.
Insufficiently automated. Like it could always be more automated than it is. Like it's amazing. You think that automation is just like one box you check, and it's like you do an automation layer, and then you realize, oh, there's more to do. Like we can do more. 4, insufficiently documented. Like you, as part of the value of Airstack is like seeing it all on like almost an org chart for your tech stack. That is a form of documentation. And so the better we document the way all data flows and all processes run across the tech stack, the better we're going to be. Not enough documentation. I have to get 5. So I've got one more. 2, siloed. I'm using the hyphenated things, the siloed. I think that like people, like the finance team operates in their own world on Zero and on various tools that are unique to them. For example, what's the name of the data visual? Tableau. Like we use Tableau. Like, but nobody else in the company uses Tableau except for them.
Right.
And then the operations team does a lot of stuff on Forest Admin, which is the analytics tool we have built into the digital assembly line. So they're over there. And then everyone's over in their own tools, and an ideal tech stack would give everyone a kind of, how in basketball you can do like a blind pass. You just have this like hive mind sync, and everyone knows where everyone's going to be at. Like because it's so siloed, we don't have as much of an understanding of like what everyone's doing every day, where everyone's working, how it all connects. So yeah, 2 siloed. Those are my 5 hyphenated words.
All right. Good job.
Thanks, Eric.
Well, this has been fantastic. I wish you all the best with Invisible and creating a market for digital assembly lines, and look forward to connecting again soon.
Yeah, the lines on the Statue of Liberty of like, send me your sick, whatever.
You're
like for Invisible, it's like, yeah. Like send me your people who are stressed out and overworked and spending nights and weekends doing work that can be done for them. Who are pulling their hair out because they're not living up to their full potential. Send me those people, and Invisible would love to help.
All right, love it. Thanks so much, Francis.
Cheers. Bye.